Hello everyone, I'm Tracy and I'm here with Shane, and today we have a really important update regarding the Ruidoso fire in New Mexico. I have a little bit of a hard time remembering that. Ruidoso fire in New Mexico has been going on since the 18th of June, so it's been going on for now 5 days, and there's a lot of really suspect things that we're seeing coming out through the media. Before we get started though, if you're here for the premiere, thank you so much for participating. And if you have not done so yet, please don't forget to subscribe. Also like, comment, and share this video with as many people as possible, especially if they're in areas that are at risk for catching fire this season. Also, I did a short showing the new Maui Massacre shirts. So I have a pretty decent amount of size mediums, larges, and extra larges. So I'll leave a link in the description if you want to buy one. And the hats are sold out, so I don't have any more of those. But I would love it if you guys wanted to support the cause and do your part in just keeping the story alive and not letting the world forget about Lahaina. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to start out with this drone footage. So I watched this many times last night. Shane and I were looking for like blue items and, things that we found in Lahaina. We could not find colored items that were left untouched, but I did I really looked close and just like knowing, having a background in editing, I feel like there is like a filter or something that's kind of like dulling out the colors. I'm not sure, but if you want to, notice that, please feel free. It just looks like the, like the green on the trees and things are very dulled out to like a grayish tone. But something that is so obvious here is the structures are gone, but the trees, for the most part, are still standing. There are some logs on the ground, but it does seem like the structures were targeted and everything else is kind of left alone. And that is really scary because it's almost like they didn't care if there was suggestive, if they left evidence that this was a directed energy device that did this. But I'll let you guys see it for yourself.
You can see the metal frame of the like mobile home is bent and warped as if it was softened to the point of almost melting.
But yeah, look at how many trees are still standing. So you would think like a forest fire would have taken out most, if not all, of those trees.
And you notice the white ash footprint with only brick and steel basically remaining. And that looks just like paradise with the white ash right next to the unburnt trees.
And see how the structures are gone, but like the trees in between are still there. And I feel like we should see more green, being that it's June.
Right. I think this is like a tinted video. You can see some of those trees are intact. Yeah, those trees look fine.
All right, let me just take this off. Okay, so before I drop my mouse. Before we show more footage, I'll just give some stats. So this fire is still going on. It's 0% contained. It is in the town of Ruidoso in New Mexico. It started on the 17th of June. That was Monday. It was first reported at 9 a.m. on a Native American reservation, the Mescatero Reservation. So far, it's reported 1,400 structures are destroyed and 24,000 acres of land have been burned. And we have 2 reported deceased, and the number of missing is unknown, but there are people that are missing. It's just the number has not been released. And 8,000 people have been evacuated from the area. So this fire is actually a combination of 2 fires. One is the South Fork fire, which is the larger one, and the Salt fire. So some similarities that we see with Lahaina, there was no warning on the cell phones and people didn't have connection for the first couple of days of this fire. Also, the firefighters had to tell people to evacuate because there was no warning. And there's also, they're also reporting that the water is not safe to drink, similar to Lahaina. And in a little bit later, I'll go into some of the meetings that were scheduled this week that are very reminiscent of things that happened in Lahaina. But this is something really exciting that I saw on the channel Into Thin Air. And it's a anomaly that was recorded shortly before the fire started. I'll let you guys see it right here.
All right, my friends, welcome back. June 18th, 2024, and we got to talk about something very weird going on with this New Mexico fire. If we zoom into this area, we can see exactly where this fire took place. I'm going to backtrack a little bit into time so we could see it at night, and here we are there. You can see this fire began yesterday, June 17th. It burned all night last night and is still active today. You can see the sun coming up over that area of New Mexico, but you are not going to believe what was happening right before this fire was actually seen on satellite. And to do that, I'm going to use some data from radar scope from yesterday right in that area. So this is Highway 54. It runs up through this part of New Mexico, which is basically about right here on the satellite map to the left. Now take a look at what happened with the NextRad radar beam, and something was tracked going all the way up this road. You see a beam come after that, and then the fire begins. Check this out. Watch the road. Highway 54 begins right here. Follow this area. As I move forward throughout about an hour time, this anomaly was tracked all the way up that highway, and then you see a beam come into play right there. You can see this beam shooting out this way. The NextRad tower is down in this area off screen, and then we see this weird anomaly going up the road, and it is right about this time here that the fire is first announced in New Mexico. This was sent to me by a subscriber who said, check out the road that is right next to where this began in New Mexico. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen something like this. We've seen weird anomalies leading up to the California fires, and we saw the same thing during the Texas fires. Some weird anomalies, weird beams going on in the atmosphere before these fires began. A lot of talk online lately about DEWs, the directed energy weapons. Now, I can't say for sure that's what's going on here, but when we look at these different radar anomalies and we put them all together, and then there's wildfires in those areas, I think it's safe to say there's something strange going on that they don't want us to know about. There is no way that all these fires are happening naturally due to climate change. I'm sorry, it is not happening. A lot of these are being done on purpose. We just don't know exactly how yet. This is only the beginning of fire season, so get used to this because it's going to happen more and more. And I have a feeling one of these fires between California, Texas, New Mexico, wherever it may be, will be a record-breaking fire as far as acreage burnt, homes lost, and people displaced. Please share this video while you have the chance. I appreciate you all. Thank you all so much. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so that was crazy. When I saw that, I was just like, oh my God. So this fire, compared to like a Tracy fire, I think has so much solid evidence that is pointing to that some sort of directed energy technology was used to start and direct this fire. I have some pictures here that I wanted to show you guys so you can see exactly what the situation is. There are actually 4 here, but the 2 main ones are the South Fork and the Salt fire. So right here, the South Fork's in the middle, Salt's in the bottom.
0% contained.
Right. And then I want to go into some of these meetings that Shane dug up. And I apologize, I didn't have as much time to study this information. So I'm going to go into what I'm familiar with, and then Shane will come through and kind of clean up what I didn't say. But here is a meeting about the, oh, this is about the fire.
Yeah, this is just information on the fire here. The first one was about the evacuations. This is the road closures. And then I think the next graphic goes into the phone numbers here. And then these are the evacuation centers, which are mostly in Capitan and Alamogordo, but Roswell has the majority of them. Most of them evacuated to Roswell because 70 East was the only way out, basically.
Okay. I didn't see those yesterday. Okay, so yeah, 1,400 structures, and they're saying that 500 of those are homes. But something I thought was very, very interesting. So Shane, I'm going to go into like the meetings that are reminiscent of Lahaina. So when I heard about this, one of the first things I think is there a TOD plan or a corridor or redevelopment plan that kind of aligns with the global agenda? And yes, there is. They call it the ICIP. So they're kind of changing it up. They're not calling it the cultural corridor or the TOD like Hawaii does. But this meeting actually started, or happened the day the fire started, 17th of June at 2 p.m. And if you remember, it was reported first on the 17th at 9 a.m. So by the time this meeting started, the fire was in the process of growing pretty quickly. And here is another posting of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Plan. So right as the fire was starting was when these meetings for this plan were also starting, which is an unusual coincidence. And here is a ordinance that they put forth. This was a couple years ago, but I do think they had an idea. Some people in charge had an idea years ago that there was some sort of plan for this area, redevelopment plan. Also, this was really reminiscent of Lahaina because they have this word workforce housing, and it's I guess they got this new housing development approved, and they call it workforce housing to describe this recent modular housing development. Again, modular housing, which is what they're putting up in Lahaina as we speak right now. And something even more reminiscent of Lahaina is this short-term rental subcommittee that was put together. So, and this one was put together after the fire. No, they announced this before, but literally the day after the fire started, they had this meeting scheduled to address the issues of short-term rentals. And if you're a little less familiar, months after the Lahaina fire, actually not too long ago, maybe like a month or two ago, there was this big deal about trying to ban short-term rentals in Lahaina because it was causing a housing shortage, and it was making it, according to Lahaina Strong, it was causing problems for the victims to find housing or to find housing that they could afford because everything is so expensive in Maui. And they managed to pass something that will ban certain short-term rentals by July of 2025. So I don't know if that's going to actually go through because a lot of these bans have legal problems, but they either just happen to have this short-term rental subcommittee formed beforehand just by coincidence, or possibly people that orchestrated this had learned from Maui that by addressing the short-term rental, disagreements, it will somehow make the process of the adjustment of like where people are going to live, and hopefully give the government leverage in taking control of these short-term rentals, or at least banning them, so possibly the victims or FEMA workers can use them. But I do feel like it's an in to leverage control over property rights. So the people's properties, the rights that you normally have if you own that property, I just feel like this is a way for the government to infringe upon those rights. But time will tell if they do ban it. The meeting was only a couple days ago, but I thought that was really interesting that that kind of aligned with what was happening and what had happened in Lahaina. Let's see what we got here. All right, this is the subcommittee, and something really, and I'll have Shane maybe go into this a little bit. I don't understand how these things happen, but shortly after the fire, there was a flash flood. So I think 2 inches of rain in a very short period of time. So it's on fire, yet it's raining at the same time. And there's also hail, like golf-sized ball hail falling on the area. And if you can see here, it is causing these major landslides. And the way that the experts explain it is when there is a huge fire, it kind of loosens up the soil because it's burning the roots of the trees and the foliage and stuff. So when the water comes down, that land is more likely to slide down, cause a landslide. And we did see flooding after the Lahaina fire on Maui, not too long after the fire. Like, there was more time, right? There's like 6 months after Lahaina that they started to get flooding. So that's another similarity to Lahaina. And I'll play this flood clip real quick.
Areas affected by the ongoing wildfires are now also at increased risk of flash flooding. Water rushed into an RV park on Wednesday. A village spokesperson says they got 2.5 inches of rain in an hour and a half, forcing them to pull crews away from the northwestern area of Ruidoso to avoid floodwaters. There have been 3 swiftwater rescues.
And this was the transition yesterday. And I'm going to requote something that Governor Lujan Grisham said to us just yesterday when she was here. And she was talking to the vice president of the Mescalero tribe. And she said, I've come to learn that anytime you get a transition in weather, there's some good and there's some bad. So we got both of that yesterday. We've got the moisture. The relative humidity really came up. But what happened is the wind shifted east. They got really strong during the afternoon. They pumped in a lot of moisture. We had convergence, and all that resulted in what you see right here. This is a radar grab off of my phone, and that's a very, very, very strong storm. And that storm is sitting right here on the fires. And so we wanted that moisture, but we didn't want the large hail. We didn't want the heavy rain that was almost 2 inches. And we certainly didn't want the debris flows and the flash flooding that we got out of the canyons on the fire. But that's the threat that we morph to once we go from hot, dry, windy conditions with the fire really wanting to run to now more moist conditions, and we're seeing thunderstorms and heavy rain on top of burn scars, which are very susceptible to flash flooding. So this shows you how strong that storm was, with hail that was over 2.5 inches in size, so golf ball size hail and larger. And then this is some of the flooding that we had off of Cedar Creek right here in Ruidoso. This is going into Paradise Canyon Road right there. And so this is a lot of that debris that got washed out of the canyons and ended up in town over the streets and stuff. And you can find this in several places in town right now as they're cleaning all this up.
I just wanted to point out that, just so many oddities with this fire. And something I just thought of is that in Texas, after the smokehouse fire, it snowed on the area that was burned, which is also a first that I've heard of. So I think that's going to do it. And also, I'll let Shane play the testimonies that some people gave to the press about how this was unprecedented, because this area is prone to wildfires and they've had a number in recent years. But some of the people that had to evacuate said that it was different than previous ones. Did I miss anything else? Similarities with? Oh, wait, one more thing. There were no warnings and the roads were closed, but I'm not trying to imply that the road closures are like what happened in Maui. This was more closures to prevent people from getting into the area that was burning. So I'll play this really quick.
It started not too far from where we're at. And when I was getting home from work, I had already seen the smoke. I started panicking, went straight to my house. And we were there, it was already smoky and stuff. So we kind of started getting things together. I looked at the wind direction and stuff and where the fire was at. And I said, it's coming straight towards us. And so we were a little concerned. We started kind of packing things up. And I was paying attention to the phone, the duty app, and that we didn't get a warning. All of a sudden, the firefighter showed up blaring their horn, sound immediate evacuate immediately. And so we just grabbed whatever we had at that moment, packed and stuff, and we left.
It's such a terrifying
The roads were
thing.
already shut off.
Really exploded into size, combined for about 20,000 acres, and it's kind of surrounding this entire mountain community. Many of the roads blocked off. This road takes you out to the northern edge of Ruidoso, where most of the fire damage in this particular area is expected to have been affected. Residents still can't get back in there.
All right, so something else that reminded me of is when I watched a documentary on Paradise, and that was another thing, is that they thought it was so weird there was no warnings and they did not have enough time to evacuate, and that's why a lot of people died in their cars. And there's one deceased here that died in the same manner. They were found deceased in their car. So I think that's going to do it for what I had to talk about, and then now I'll have Shane do more of the technical information. So I'll hand it over to you, Shane.
All right. So I am going to go ahead and backtrack a little bit over some of the things that you mentioned. There was 2 deaths. One of them was a musician by the name of Patrick Pearson. And I found his daughter's Facebook post where they were talking about what happened. And it turns out that he had recently broken his leg about 2 weeks beforehand, and he had a walker. And so he was unable to really to run. He could barely walk. And he didn't have a car, but he was waiting on a neighbor or friend to actually come get him. But this neighbor or friend was on their way and was roadblocked and was not allowed to go and to pick him up. And he tried texting him, but the text message never went through because the communications were already down. So Patrick ended up standing there the whole time waiting for his ride to show up, but he was never able to get there. And so Patrick ended up, dying of burns. But it just so happens that the roadblock was a factor, and the communication was also a factor, leading to this man's death. And so I just wanted to give my condolences to the family, and may he rest in peace. Now, a couple of other things I wanted to cover is that there were livestock evacuation sites. This is not for cattle. I mean, it is for cattle, but it's mostly for horses, but it also does include cattle, goats, and sheep. And there are red dots on the map that also will take in smaller animals like dogs and cats. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to the infrastructure capital improvement plan, which is a newer version of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Plan, which came out in 2020. This is their newer version, which carries them through 2030, which we've seen a lot of. That should be kind of a hint. And these meetings were to be held on Monday, June 17th at 2 p.m. Now, that meeting actually was held, and I don't have a clip of it ready, but I did watch the meeting, and there was a point where they had a break in the meeting, and they were actually talking about the fire. So this was after the upper canyon was evacuated, and just before some of the other areas were to be evacuated. But in the meeting, I overheard them talking about how this is like their 3rd EOC activation in just a couple of years. And yeah, it's weird how they didn't realize at the meeting that, they were going over the meeting for the redevelopment plans, and they didn't realize that the fire could in some way be connected. They amended the land use ordinance to allow the development of housing in Ruidoso a couple years ago, which they are beginning workforce housing projects, just like Maui. And it does look like they're trying to get ahead of the short-term rental problem like they ran into in Maui by forming this short-term rental subcommittee. And then there was a town hall meeting that was scheduled for the day of the fire at 6:00 p.m. at the convention center. But the convention center was converted into an evacuation center prior to that. And then at around 5 p.m. that evening, they were actually evacuated from the entire town. So the original evacuation center had to also evacuate to Roswell. Okay, so I'm going to go through a couple more of these photos. This is a car that is, it has the aluminum rims melted, and there's a few videos that do show close-ups of the windshield, which was also melted. This is, if you look in the center of the photo, I should have zoomed in on this, but you can see that there's a tree standing that's been hollowed out from the inside where it burned. Here's another car that has aluminum melted, and this aluminum was more than just softened. It was melted into a liquid that was able to run downhill. Here is another tire that has been completely burned away from the rim, leaving only the steel belted cords that were inside the tire. And these are actually steel alloy rims. These are not aluminum rims. These are more like steel alloy rims. But they have even themselves softened and bent slightly. So you can see that even this steel rim was heated to the point of softening. All right, so then we do have the floods that came through. This flash flood dropped about 2 inches of rain in about 6 hours from Tropical Storm Alberto, which was moving through Texas and Mexico. And one of the bands of rain moved north into New Mexico to drop all of this rain. So now we're going to go to some of the videos. I want to show, let's see here. I'm not sure what all you have shown so far, but there is some testimony from Pam Bonners, or Pam Bonners. I can't remember her name. It's Bonners, yes. And she gives her testimony, and I have edited this down so that it's not too long.
We've seen other fires, but nothing like this. Not even close. When I went outside at about 8:30 in the morning out into our front yard, I thought I smelled smoke, and I didn't see any, but I thought I smelled it. At just around 9 o'clock, the fire was reported in the morning. I think it was probably about, at that time it was only 20 acres. And I think it was sometime in the early afternoon, it had exploded to 200 acres. Maybe around between 5 and 5:30 that the entire village was told to evacuate. So it just exploded. It grew from 200 acres and now it's almost 14,000 acres in 24 hours. That Upper Canyon area is gone. There's nothing left. It's gone. It's burnt to the ground. And there's a lot of homes back there. They have an evacuation center set up here in Roswell. So they have that set up. They originally had put together an evacuation center at our convention center, but obviously that's no longer there. I think it's encroaching on 14,000 acres, 13,000 acres, no containment at all. So this is going to be more devastating than I think the Little Bear fire when it was 12 years ago. Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to be brutal.
Yeah, so as you can see, she said that the fire got out of control really fast, and it's looking like it's going to be the worst one that they've had, at least in that region. All right, so now I'm going to go to some more of the evidence. This is a video that we have that shows some of the unusual burn patterns.
The embers are still hot in Ruidoso. Valleys of scorched trees dotted with sizzling homes, all while fire crews continue their battle on the ground and from the sky. This is what's left of what appears to have been a motel here in Ruidoso, less than 24 hours after the village was evacuated. You can see this building is just now a pile of rubble, and you can see there's even smoke still coming up out of the damage. Now, this fire fire moved incredibly fast, and you can see that in this parking lot. There are several cars that are just molten really into the parking lot as the fire came through, and you can see just how hot it was burning with this evidence right here of what was at one point liquid metal coming out of this car. This is a very sobering sight to see, and definitely not the only example of destruction here in Ruidoso right now. This pile of smoldering rubble used to be the Swiss Chalet Inn, a popular hotel with scenic mountain views. Now it's just one of the many ruins telling the story of a community forced to evacuate at a moment's notice.
All right. And that Swiss Chalet Inn was where Patrick lost his life, by the way. I'm going to show a little bit more burn evidence. This is a railroad tie that is bolted or nailed to the upright with like a railroad spike. And you can see inside the hole where this railroad spike is, there was actually a fire burning inside where the metal was. And the smoke is coming out of the cracks in this upright log or railroad tie. And you can see that it looks like there's a hole, like, well, there is a hole where the nail is, but you can see that the smoke and the char was coming from the inside of that hole where the metal spike was, which is a very interesting burn pattern. Another thing that I wanted to go to real quick was that there are still some missing people because communications are still very spotty, and people are still looking for their loved ones. And I'm going to play this clip about that right now.
Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham says so far one person has died in the wildfires. She also says people are calling fire hotlines looking for family members, although she doesn't know how many people are missing.
I don't have an accurate number. I don't know that anyone does. Again, if you believe that you've got a loved one that is in jeopardy, we want to know about it. We want to do everything we can to locate it.
All right. Now, I do want to go back to that car because I have a little bit more video evidence of that car. We're going to get up closer and look at the inside of the car and see what it looks like. You can see that the glass is melted on the dashboard and that the rims have melted as well. Looks like stone and metal is about all that really survived.
In the McBride fire, we lost about 286 homes, but this one, they're estimating about 1,400. We've evacuated about 8,000 individuals from the village of Ruidoso Downs, and surrounding areas. There's a lot of devastation, and so we urge individuals to stay out of the area. I know a lot of residents want to come back in, check on their houses, but because the fire is so unstable, we're just requesting that everybody stay out.
You can also see that the fence burned near the vehicle, but not away from the vehicle. And in the corner of this,
we're able to come in and reassess. We'll be working with the GIS and assessor's office with the county, GIS with the village of Ruidoso, on trying to figure out what property owners are in each area that have burned. Once we're able to reassess, then we'll be able to contact those individuals.
Yeah, so the thing, like with that clip that was so, to me, blatantly obvious that there was something not right was how the trees are all standing, but the structures between those trees are gone. And
right.
That is just like, so it's really terrifying because it's like they don't even care to make it seem like it was a forest fire. It was like something just went in there and just got the cars and the structures. But I think one positive note is it doesn't seem like a lot of people were trapped into the area. So I don't think the death toll will be what like the real number is, or it should be in Maui. So because of it's not as densely populated, but I wanted to get this up as soon as possible. So I apologize for it, not being as smooth as maybe some of our other ones are. But I do think this is such a bad sign because one, I feel like now they're better prepared, and so I think a lot of like potential evidence is being censored. Now, because of what we've learned or what they have learned from Maui, it's like they have better insight on issues to attack, before. So the more they do, the easier it will be for them to get away with the land grab and covering their tracks. And it's seeming like they're not even trying to hide it. Just something that I found striking about this fire compared to other ones. So was there anything else, Shane, that you had?
Well, I just wanted to add that ever since Maui, we've had the intuition that this is going to happen elsewhere. And since then, we've seen it happen in Chile and Texas and now New Mexico. And it looks like they're not going to stop. And this is going to happen other places, just like in California recently as well. And I wanted to play one more clip about the governor's response, about the response to this fire and how the governor says it should be a model for the U.S.
It's incredible the way people are being treated. This is not always that typical. It should. This should be the model all across the United States. It isn't that it's perfect, but this is a state that always comes to the aid of its people.
It should be a model for the rest of the United States.
Yeah, and then more recently, she said that, like, coming to the aid of people. I know that Governor Greg Abbott in Texas has lended his resources, and I believe in Arizona as well. And that's interesting that Greg Abbott is getting involved because his state has been hit with an unusual amount of weather events, like extreme storms, hail, fire. The hugest fire in Texas history just happened. So I just kind of thought that was interesting that he is, I don't know, I think Greg Abbott is on the fence about how to handle the way the state has been treated. And maybe at some point we'll do a video on Texas as a whole, because it's so many things are going on there. All right, was there anything else, Shane, that we've left out? Or
no, I think that covers it.
Okay, so again, thank you guys for being here. If you're here for the premiere, and if you have not subscribed, please do so before you leave, and like, comment, and share this video. And we will see you all in the next one. Bye.